Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our viewers across the globe. Thank you for coming on this show and welcome to Excellence, the 30 Minutes Talk Show. So, today I'm very happy and pleased to introduce you to our associate and speaker, Luca Polito, who is taking us on the journey of self discovery. Welcome to the show, Luca.
Thank you very much. Thank you for letting me participate into this beautiful talk.
Thanks, Luca. So, Luca is a personal and corporate coach, and he's helping individuals and organizations to create a truly collaborative culture to explore or unlock their hidden potential and taking them on a growth trajectory. So Luca has done his master's in NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, and he is an International Coach Federation certified coach with a 3 years training, NLP and hypno coaching, and then transformational counseling, and a CTC, which is like a cognitive transformational coaching, which is his own developed methodology, are his strengths. And his techniques are backed with 25 years of corporate experience as an executive in various roles, ranging from program project manager to business process improvement manager. And he's very passionate. He's very passionate to stimulate that magical moment in which someone decides to be very happy, authentic, and like immune to the external interference. So I'm very happy again, Luca, and we are very excited to have you on the show. And we look forward to be self-aware, to do that self-discovery which is within us, and how it's going to help us progress and achieve success in our life. So thanks again, Luca. Um, so what I would do add here is like, yes, so the moment we all come into this world, what we do is we start observing. So we start observing our surrounding. So we start learning to become aware of things, what is around us, and what are they affecting, in what way they are affecting us. So take, for example, like the excessive brightness of the sun or the pitch darkness of the night. So what happens in either case is like we start crying as a child and seek an adult's attention to protect us. So this observing, learning, and absorbing of the surrounding and its effect on us is a continuous process. And there are moments like, like wherein we are happy about our reactions or our behaviors or managing our behaviors as a result of these internal or external situations. But there are definitely moments or times when we start thinking about managing a particular event in a better way, hoping that, it would have been better if I've been in my best moment at that particular reaction. So Luca, can you help us understanding like how to be the best version of ourselves so that we feel we are in control?
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Swapnil, for the opportunity that you're giving to me. Basically, how to be the best version of ourselves? Well, it's a journey. Sorry, 1 second it's a journey. It's a journey that is very long and probably never really ends, because you start and you do not know where you finish. We have example of, let's say, Dalai Lama or other personalities around the world that are still continuing their path. So we can't really say that we will ever be the best version of ourselves. However, it's a path, it's a journey that we have to start somewhere. So, and where do we start? This is what I would like to show today. So, which is usually when I do my coaching session or counseling session process with my clients, we have to start somewhere. And the first session usually are invested in some changes that allow then the person to develop himself or to go through this development path. So what I like to share as the first thing with the people usually is this sentence from Carl Jung. Carl Jung doesn't need to be really introduced. He's one of the most famous psychologists of the last century and in the whole history of psychology. What he said is that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So what does it mean here? That you might know, right, that I mean, it is not really scientifically correct at 100%, but around 90% of our mind is unconscious, and around 10% of our mind is conscious. So in the let's say at the beginning of the last century, the unconscious was seen as a bit of a negative things, where we had all our unchangeable reality that we're like not under our control, and the conscious part is what we can control. However, this vision has radically changed since the 60s of last century, with the positive psychology and humanistic psychology, and the unconscious now, and this is confirmed also by neuroscience, it is in fact a very important part of ourself. It is not an enemy at all. It is not something which is outside our control because of an unlucky event. It is in fact part of millions of years of evolution of the human being. And there is a reason why it is unconscious. And the reason why it is unconscious is that it is corrected. It is like that in the sense, because there are so many information processed that we cannot really process them with a conscious mind. And so the unconscious, basically, we can see it as our friend, our companion in our life. Right. And basically the unconscious is taking all our decisions. It's part of us, it's us. So it is not an external person, it's us, and it is deciding for us, it is protecting us, and it is doing the best for us. However, there is always however, a certain part of the unconscious mind can be sometimes in certain situation not functional, not useful for us. So certain things can happen in our life, and our certain unconscious behavior, unconscious pattern becomes not functional. So this is basically, yes, where we need to start.
Okay, so what I understand is like, yes, so if we want to, so it's basically like alerting that consciousness out of your unconsciousness. So how can we make the unconscious conscious, like where the process starts, like where can we start it? Like obviously it is us we have to start it with, but like how?
Yeah. That's a good question, and this is usually where we start the process. And I would like here to mention a very famous sentence, at least in the world of coaches and counselors and psychologists, which is the map is not the territory. This sentence was first said by Alfred Korzybski in the 40s of the last century, and he is the creator of general semantic. What does that mean? The map is not the territory. Well, the territory, we can consider the territory as the external environment, let's say the world or the reality. And the map is the representation of that reality that we have within ourselves. So when he says that the map is not the territory, what he means here is that there is not a single absolute reality, but the reality is always created by ourselves somehow. Okay. And what he says that the only usefulness of a map depends on the similarity of the structure between the empirical world and the map. So what he says is that the map is created by ourselves, and the more similar to the outside reality it is, the more useful it is. And I will explain this better in my next slide. But I would suggest everyone to keep in mind this sentence. For me, it's like a mantra. The map is not the territory. Every time I think that something is unchangeable, well, I get back to the fact that this is my map of the reality. Everybody has a different map of a reality. In fact, there are as many maps as people in the world. If you add the animals, there will be other maps. So there are billions of different realities, which are in fact the map of each single person in the world.
Right. Okay. So yeah. So I understand like what you have tried to explain now, that the map is not the territory, and we have to create our own reality. So then, how do we build our own map? What is the process like? How do we start to get onto the building of our own map, Luca?
Yeah, so basically, we don't really have to start building our own map, because the nature does it for us. So
Okay.
basically, in fact, before being born, we are already building our map, because we hear noises. When we are really in the belly of our mother, we already create our map. As soon as there is a cognitive part of our mind, we create our map of the world. Let's say when I am a kid, if I hear something, if I hear classical music, you know, I feel different emotions. If I hear my parents screaming, I build a different expectation of how the world will be when I'm born. So I know it sounds fun, but it is the reality. So basically, we don't have to create our own map. So the nature thought about it already, and it is making us creating our own map, because the map is the way we live in this world. Without map, we cannot live. So what is the map? The map is it's basically all what we have in our mind. All our conscious and unconscious mind is our map. And how is it formed? It is important to understand how this is formed, because once we understand how it is formed, we can also see how we can interfere with that map, and how to make it or to change it and manipulate it in the way that it is more useful or functional for us. So let's assume we have the territory here on the right side of our screen, right?
Okay.
So the territory is the environment, external environment. Might be a person, might be our partner, might be an external event that happens. So how do we, as human beings, how do we interpret that reality? Because when we say about reality, what is the reality, right? So basically, we interpret that reality through our five senses. And this is very nice to see, because it is also this. We also have some help from neuroscience, because they say that our senses process 2 million bits of information per second. 2 million bits of information per second. It's enormous quantity of information that is processed by our mind, and usually 30% or 40% is processed by our visual, and the rest by auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory. But in general, we process 2 million bits of information per second. This amount of information is completely not possible to be processed by our conscious mind. In fact, our conscious mind processes 134 bits per second. So basically, we are in the process of acquiring this information. We are losing 99.9% of information. And how do we lose this information? Because there are filters. And this loss is not a loss that is unfortunate. It is exactly built because we have to be capable to process this information in a way that we are, from an energetic point of view, we are effective, efficient, because our brain otherwise would consume 1 million of calories per day, which is not possible. We would be dead already, right? So, but the fact that we still live, and our brain is not big like a truck, but it is, relatively small, and we can have our brain in our mind, and we can still walking in a rectum away, means that we have to be very effective in terms of energy. And so we have filters. And what are those filters? The filters are called generalization, dilation, and distortion. This is what we do with the information. Now, I will not go into the detail, but let's make an example. So there are a lot of papers from literature, from law and trials that study how a witness is capable to witness an accident or a fact. And usually, out of 10 witnesses, 10 people will tell a different story. Why is this happening? So why 10 witnesses have 10 different versions of the reality? Why is this happening? Because, when we see things, in fact, you see only a part of what you see. Maybe you are behind the person, or maybe you see from the left, or maybe you see from the right. And at the same time, we only see a part of reality. We don't see ultraviolet. We only see what is visible to us, and it is a very small part of basically the waves that in principle are visible by other animals. So this is already a delation, right? And then we generalize in the way that we utilize our previous experience to make a story of what is happening, and we distort. Basically, we have positive and negative hallucination, it is called like this, and we tend to invent things. You know, you will hear that I saw 3 people and another person saw 4 people, and there is another person that saw 5 people, and maybe another person saw only 2. And the reality is, what is the reality? I don't know, because everybody will tell you something different. So once we have processed this information, our conscious mind is capable to process only 7 plus minus 2 chunks of information, which is 134 bits out of the 2 million that our senses have perceived, right? And so basically, it is a very little part of the real reality, if you can call it like that. And this little part is generating our own map. On top of it, you need to add our values and our beliefs and our memories, because, for instance, I might have seen 3 people, but I forgot. And now I don't remember. And then when I have to witness, these 3 people became 2. Or maybe I have certain values. For instance, I am a racist, and I believe that one person is, guilty and another person not. Or maybe I'm not racist, so this happens, right? And or maybe I'm very open, and I think that a car accident, I assume that the woman was driving because there is an accident, while in the end it was a man, because in my belief, women are a worse driver. I'm just making it right, but basically our values, our beliefs, our memories, our attitude, and our language, because then we have to express the concept using a language, and the language is already limited. So using a language is already limiting a lot the reality, because you cannot really express all the things that happen in reality. Like, for instance, quantum physics or quantum mechanics cannot be expressed with language. This is just an example. So basically, the reality is very difficult to express with language. And so basically, when we speak or when we behave, we are utilizing a complete personalized reality, which is our own map. Does it make sense? Was I capable? Because this is a very complex process, which there is basically neuroscience and psychology. But I hope I was capable to give a bit of an idea why each of us has his own map of the reality.
Yes, 100%, Luca. That was definitely. So what I understand is that this raise in consciousness and the change in thoughts and behaviors, which prevent our beliefs or our different emotions, maybe negative or self-defeating behaviors, which in the earlier slide, which we have seen, which direct our fate. But whereas now what we are saying is that the fate is determined once we start knowing ourselves enough to take effective action in our daily lives, and then transforming us into the better version of ourselves. So this whole concept of the map is not the territory. It's remarkably interesting. I do understand that. And furthermore, like, we have to build our own map, identifying the internal reality, and then obviously which are based on our perceptions and values, which in turn can control our resulted actions. So how can we utilize this learning, what we have said now, to improve our life? So I mean, like, to start a development path to a happier life.
Okay, that's a very good question. So basically, the first suggestion that I give in general to people is that once you understand that the map is not the territory, so that there is no absolute reality, which in fact is also proven by quantum mechanics and relativity theory of Einstein. So now it's a concept that is really well known also by our science, if you like. Once we understand that the reality is always as we perceive it and we can influence it, then we understand that as we create our own reality, we can also change the way we create our own reality. That is the beauty of it. Right. Because, if we think that the reality is absolute, and then there is no possibility to change it. If we think that the reality is something that we create ourselves, well, then we are the owner of it, because I own my map. And once I understand that I own my map, well, then I can do whatever I want with my map. That is the beauty. So this is the real positive message that is at the base of any coaching and then the counseling process. Basically, we need to understand that the reality is something we can't manipulate because it's our own reality. And
Right.
if we take for granted that the reality is there, absolute, and we cannot change it, we are in fact victim. If we understand that the reality is something that we can create or co-create, because of course we cannot change everything in the world, but we can co-create it, and then we become creator. So we switch from a victim position to a creator. The first example that I would like to show is this, right? So we in coaching, we speak about locus of control. What is the locus of control? Basically, it's where our life is controlled. So when we speak about external locus of control, we refer to the fact that maybe in certain period of our life, or maybe in certain specific, let's say, environment of our life, we tend to have to let our emotion and our future at the mercy of external environment.
Correct.
And this happens especially, you know, when we are working and we are in a very stressful situation, we are really overwhelmed. We tend for, now I make some example, right? So we tend, for instance, to depend on somebody else feedback. You know, when we depend too much on somebody else's feedback, and then our emotions are completely depending on a third person, or maybe when we are too less proactive and a little reactive, we're always waiting that something happens to start something. Or and let's say when we talk to a person, we put ourselves, and this person is rude to us, we put ourselves in a victim position by thinking that things are happening to us. So basically, you know, there is a continuum of locus of control, right? So the good thing is to have somewhere in between and towards the internal. But in certain situations, we have it very, very much external. So basically, our life depends on the external environment, or depends on on other people. In this case, let's say our emotional boundaries or emotional, let's say, borders are very weak, because everybody can come and make us feeling unhappy or
Right.
angry. Or, and in this case, when everybody has the possibility to make us feeling something, it means that the locus of control is totally external. When we are overwhelmed, when we are at the edge of a burnout, usually it is completely external, the locus of control, because we do not have control our emotions or our life or our fate or our destiny. So but if we understand that the locus of control, it's a temporary map of the world. That this is how it links with the previous slide, because the locus of control is part of the map, it's part of our beliefs, it's part of the way we build our emotions, and basically that can be changed. So usually one of the first step in a coaching or counseling process is to move this locus of control from the very right, let's say from the
Yeah.
external, towards the center or the internal.
Correct. Yeah. So as you said, like you switch from a victim to a creator or a co-creator active role. So like, what can we do in practice, like in actual practice, to change this locus of control from a passive role to an active role, Luca?
You know, the one of the exercise that we usually do is to generate, let's say, an objective position. An objective position. Let's say usually when we ask to people, what do you think? You know, we ask advices to people, but they will all have their own map of the reality. So they will all tell us their reality. So the best thing to do is to generate within ourselves a sort of an external observer, which is still us, that can guide us and can be neutral and can tell us what we are doing in neutral way, and which is related and really looking at our well-being. Let's say, how do we do that? Basically, it is the research of our real self, inner self. And so, and this becomes, it starts being very interesting, because for instance, let's make the example with the emotion. So we tend usually to identify with our emotion. Let's say when I'm angry, when I'm feeling a sense of anger, I say I am angry.
Right.
When you make me something, I even say you make me feel bad, right? As if you really had the capability to inject some chemical, biochemical stuff in me and make me angry, right? So usually we tend to identify with our emotions, and we tend to identify with our thoughts. we tend to identify with our impulse. We tend to identify with our sensation, which is not necessarily bad. But the problem is that whenever we identify with an emotion, it is almost impossible to look at ourselves from an objective position. And so when we are identifying with the fact that I'm angry and there is nothing I can do about it. And so basically I'm still depending on the external environment that I cannot observe me. So the very first thing that we should do to be capable to change is observe ourselves. And to observe ourselves, we need to go through a process which is called disidentification.
Okay.
The disidentification, basically, it's like installing within ourselves a kind of an eye, which is observing us, which is observing our emotions. So let's say, basically, if I ask you, are you your emotions? Well, in fact, you're not your emotion, because if you can observe your emotion, if you can perceive your emotions, so you are the perceiver. You cannot be the perceived, because if you perceive the emotion, if you can explain the emotions, it means that you are not your emotions. You are not your impulses. You are not your thought, because you could live without thinking. In fact, you live without thinking for a half an hour meditation. And you can even live without your memories, because if you lose your memory tomorrow with an accident, you're still yourself, right? And so basically, if you can perceive your emotions, if you can perceive your memories, if you can perceive your thought, it means that you are not your thought and your emotion. And basically, once you're capable to generate this internal I, which is the perceiver, and then you will be capable to make the very first step to change your map towards something which is more functional and useful for you, because you start observing yourself. So this is the very, very, very first step. And there are exercises to do that. And it's a question of exercise, in fact. Once you start, and then you see the world from a different way, different perspective. It's very fun.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Luca. So this identification, like the process of having an internal eye, is particularly extremely important, as I understand it. And as you mentioned that like this is where the process begins, sort of. So, and you mentioned something about an exercise. So I know like we are short of time now, like because this is a 30-minute talk show. But is it possible like we can send across this exercise to the participants who are attending our show today, Luca?
Yeah, we will do that for sure. Yes, with some explanation on how to do that. It's very fun, and you will start understanding how that works. You might see reality from a different perspective.
Right. Okay. So thank you very much, Luca, for all this self-awareness, the internal reality, and the passive to active role. It's definitely enlightening, and we all can practice it. But before I like open a few minutes for question and answer, can you please unshare your screen, and I'll just run down through the offerings, and then we'll take some question and answers as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is for all the participants who are there on the show today. So this is like the self-awareness program which we have launched together with our association. So the program is of almost 10 sessions, so 1 hour per sessions, and it will be conducted fortnightly. The starter sessions are like it's a 2 hour session. So out of the 10 sessions, 2 sessions will be the starter sessions, which will help us to assess the needs and resolutions which you require. And the balance 8 sessions are like an hour's session each, and they will be as per the need and actual coaching and mentoring requirement. Along with this, like we have agreed that the pre-coaching session, which is like a 45-minute session, that session will be free, so we're not charging anything for that. Overall, the full program charges are £1,000. With the association, I'm happy to say that SPNSS is giving discount of 20%, which is £200. So you only pay £800. And you do have flexibility to buy 2 options of 5 sessions each. Now, saying this is a program, but it again depends on individuals, like how they are benefiting through the program. So you can opt out at any particular moment after any particular session, just giving an advance notification. So these are all the flexibilities which we have tried to imbibe in the self-awareness program which we are offering. And we do have corporate packages available, which will be discussed. And if you have any inquiries, or if you want to book any courses, you please contact us on excellence@spnsslimited.co.uk. So thank you very much for coming on the show, Luca. And thank you everyone for attending and coming on this show today. I would like to close today's show by saying that self-awareness is the most important thing towards being a champion. So be self-aware, be a champion. Thank you and have a good day.